Hello students, welcome to GSP Tutorial 3. Make sure you have completed Tutorial 2 before proceeding with this tutorial. So this is what we learned in Tutorial 2, how to draw and how to measure an angle. So let's start with a new file. Let's go to File, New Sketch. If you close Geometer Sketchpad, then please open it by double-clicking on the icon GSP5. Okay, let's start with our title text box. Let's click on Text Tool. And because we're getting better at this, I'm going to go a little bit faster. Let's type in the title, Tutorial 3, Drawing Different Angles. Please press pause while you type in that title. Let's highlight the entire title. Let's go down to the bottom and let's change the font. Now, if you are just going right from Tutorial 2 to Tutorial 3, it should remember the font that you used last time. For these tutorials, we have made the title font size 24. Remember to bold and to underline the title. Let's change to the selection arrow tool. Let's grab the title and place it at the top and center of our screen, and let us deselect. Let's create the name box. Click on the text tool. Drag a box by first name, last name, class. Highlight that information. Take off the underline, take off the bold, add italics, and let's reduce the font to size 16. Let's click on the selection arrow and let's drag that box underneath the title and deselect. Let's do an initial save. So let's go to File, Save As. Now remember the two methods I taught you and how to save. You can click on this icon for computer and then click on the icon of your student number, or you can use this down arrow. Make sure you look for the word computer and then underneath the word computer, save and look for your student number. The file name is Tutorial 3. Hit save. Okay, let's go right up to Edit and down to Preferences. Let's change the angle, precision, to units. Now, in any assignment that I'm going to give you, if you are measuring angles, then I probably want you to change the precision to units. For this tutorial, we don't have to worry about distance or others. So let's click OK. So remember what we did in tutorial 1? We drew an acute angle. So let's click on the line segment tool and let's draw an acute angle. Remember, an angle has two line segments that are joined at a very special point called the vertex. Let's click on the selection arrow tool and deselect. Now remember, the most important skill in Geometer Sketchpad is knowing how to draw and measure an angle. So remember the EVE rule. Let's see if I can grab it here. So I'm just going to copy. I'm just going to keep it here as a reminder. The EVE rule, endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Now you don't have to have this text box on your tutorial. So let's click on an endpoint, the vertex, and the other endpoint. Let's go up to the measure menu at the top and let's measure the angle. The measurement will appear somewhere on the screen highlighted. Let's click on it and let's try to move that angle measurement near or in the mouth of the angle. Now sometimes your angle will be so small that this won't be able to fit and you'll just have to place it near the vertex. That's okay as well. If you can though, try to place it inside the mouth of the angle. Now let me show you what happens if you don't use the EVE rule. So I'm just going to move this out here. So let's say I violate the EVE rule. In other words, I don't follow it. And I click on Endpoint, Endpoint, Vertex. And then I go to Measure. And I go to Angle. And this is the measurement I get. So you might be looking at your diagram and thinking, you know, that just doesn't look like it's 80 degrees. Well, your instincts are right, because it's not an 80-degree angle, because you've measured it wrong. So I'm going to delete that. So what happens if we click on the vertex first, and then we click on endpoint, endpoint? So in other words, I've done the VEE rule. And I go to measure, I go to angle. And again, every time you measure something, you always have to examine it and question it. So this looks like it's 81 degrees, but there's no way that this angle looks like 81 degrees. So that tells you, you know what, I've done something wrong. So that's a good way to check the EVE rule. As long as you proofread your work, then you can catch a mistake. All right, so let's draw an obtuse angle. So let's click on line segment, and I'm going to draw what I think looks like an obtuse angle, a very wide angle. Let's measure it to make sure. I'm going to click on the selection arrow tool and I'm going to deselect. Don't forget the EVE rule. Endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Let's go to measure and let's go to angle. Okay, now I've measured this angle and the computer tells me that it is 128 degrees, quite a bit larger than this acute angle. Now remember, I can change that angle to whatever I want, but I want to make sure that it is an obtuse angle. Now if I go too far, then you see that it is no longer an obtuse angle. So I'm going to go wide again. Now remember, an obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Okay, let's change the color of the second angle just to differentiate between the acute and the obtuse. So let's click on the two line segments. Let's go up to display, color, and how about I make this one light blue? Very nice color. Okay, these two angles are fairly simple to draw. Actually, let's add a label to them. So let's click on the text tool, and underneath the acute angle, I'm going to create a small text box, and I'm going to label this one acute angle. I'm going to get rid of the italics. How about I put a bold back, and then I increase the size a little bit. I can click on the select tool and I can move that label directly underneath that angle. So let's create another label for the obtuse angle. So let's click on the text box, drag a box, and label this obtuse angle. Now it should remember the font size, and the font style that you chose for this box. Let's click on selection arrow and let's move that directly underneath the obtuse angle. So we've drawn the first two families of angles very simply. So let's go on to the right angle. So when I say right angle, I'm hoping you're thinking, Well, that's an angle that is 90 degrees. Excellent. So here's how you draw a right angle. Let's click on the segment straight edge tool, the line segment tool, and I want you to draw a vertical line. A vertical line goes up and down, but while you're drawing it, I want you to hold the Shift key on your keyboard. So I'm going to press the Shift key right now, and I'm going to hold it, and then I'm going to draw my line. Now, as you're drawing your line, you'll see that really there's only a few different kind of slots that it can go in. So if I keep my mouse straight, I can draw a perfectly vertical line. I'm going to click on the mouse, and then I'm going to let go of the Shift key. Now I've drawn a perfectly vertical line. So now let's use the same technique to draw a perfectly horizontal line. I'm going to hold the Shift key now. I'm going to click on the mouse, and I'm going to drag out to the right or to the left, depending on where you have room. And I'm going to click, and I'm going to let go of the Shift key. Now I've drawn a perfectly horizontal line. Now remember, I said that a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. So let's see if we have drawn an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. So let's go up to the selection arrow, and let's deselect. Click on any white area. Let's remember the EVE rule. Endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Let's go to measure, and let's see if we've drawn it correctly. 90 degrees. Perfect. Now, if you measure the angle and it comes out 91 degrees or 89 degrees, it is not a right angle. But you can always adjust it by clicking on one of the points and moving it. So you don't always have to delete things and recreate them. You can adjust them. Okay, let's change the color of this angle. Let's click on the two line segments. Let's go up to display, color, and let's make it a different color. How about brown? And deselect. I'm going to create a label like I did for the first two angles. Let's click on the text tool, and I'm going to label this right angle. I'm going to click on the selection arrow tool, and I'm going to grab that text box and place it directly underneath the right angle, and I'm going to deselect. All right, let's draw the last family of angles, the straight angle. Now, the easiest way to draw a straight angle is to draw an extra long line segment. It doesn't matter if it's diagonal or perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal, it doesn't matter. Now, for the first time in these tutorials, I'm going to introduce you to the point tool. Now, if I just deselect and I look at this drawing, many students make the mistake of thinking that this is a straight angle, but it is not a straight angle because it has only two endpoints, here and here. So this is not the definition of an angle. An angle must have two endpoints and a vertex. So the thing that is missing in this diagram is the vertex. And that's where we can use the point tool. So from the toolbar, I'm going to introduce you for the first time to the point tool. I'm going to click on the point tool, and you see that I'm dragging a point around. I'm going to place a point on the line segment near the middle of it. And I'm going to click. Now I've got my vertex. All right, let's change tools. Back to the selection arrow tool, and let's deselect. Don't forget to deselect first. Let's click on endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Don't forget the EVE rule. Let's go up to measure. Let's go to angle. And if I've drawn it correctly, the measurement should be 180 degrees. Let's deselect. Let's click on that angle and change its color. And now let's create a label box. Straight angle. I'm going to switch tools to the selection arrow tool so I can move that label underneath that diagram. So this concludes tutorial 3. Let's do a save, file, save. Thanks for watching this tutorial. We'll see you next time. Bye.